So I think in a very real way, any deeply felt and thoroughly thought through interpretation is already authentic. But for this particular recording, I did do a deep dive into Chopin's creative practices as a composer, performer, and teacher. And what I learned from that was the importance of improvisation to Chopin's method. It was part of how he conceived of the piece to begin with, and actually he sometimes struggled to get that initial conception translated through notation onto paper. But it was also part of how he'd go on to perform his own pieces and to teach these pieces to his students, expecting them to embellish or to vary a little bit around the basic bones, the structure of the piece. In Chopin's case, it's particularly interesting because he was in the habit of sending maybe 2 or 3 autograph scores to 2 or 3 publishers in 2 or 3 countries of the same piece. And this is a fairly time-consuming process to copy these out by hand. And in the meantime, he would be embellishing and improvising around these pieces himself. So very often we can actually see 2 or 3 different versions of the piece, entirely Chopin's own, appearing in publication for the first time during his lifetime, near about the time of composition. And I think for a performer, recording is a little bit different to performing, but even so, I certainly felt licensed to at least look at those variants that exist, those versions that are Chopin's own. And in some cases, learning from how his students particularly would describe his teaching and learning from the sort of embellishments that he was making in his own music, I felt some license to very carefully include 1 or 2 little embellishments or improvisations of my own, which I think are entirely authentic, somewhat ironically compared to the way that we tend to think about authenticity, but entirely authentic to the way that Chopin thought about interpretation and thought about these pieces.